Okay, Illegitimate Scholar podcast, special episode. I got Brad Pearce coming back, Wayward Rabbler. He does Substack. You're on Twitter as well. It's like your third time coming on. This is on YouTube. Probably going to use some visual aids. I'm going to throw this up on the podcast feed probably tomorrow. So yeah, we're going to talk about Haiti. Haiti's crazy. There's like apparently cannibalism. I don't know how serious those reports are. I did see a video on the internet of a guy biting another guy's dick off. That was pretty crazy. But we're going to talk about the situation, of course, from the cultural anthropology lens. We're going to talk about the history a little bit and whatever Brad has to say about it. He's got an article on it like he usually does, and other articles about like some topics that don't normally get represented, like Africa. We've talked about Mali here. We've talked about what was the other one we did? Sahel. Is it Somalia? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think it was about Africa both times I was on. I don't currently remember.
Yeah. So, regardless, you're here. Thanks for coming again.
Hey, you're welcome.
Let's get right back into Haiti. So what do you have to say first? Do you want me to pull the article up, or do you just want to talk free?
I mean, I guess I'll just give a background for people that possibly either don't know, have not heard anything about it, or have only seen, a few panicked, ignorant posts on the internet. I mean, that said, the situation is really bad, so it shouldn't. I'm not saying that to downplay it. I'm just saying, you know how Twitter is. People don't really look into things necessarily. Anyway, so basically, Haiti. We don't need to go into the whole history, but it's, the U.S. has heavily intervened there 3 different times and has been involved in other ways. So in 2021, the elected president, held office, but he was the elected president. Jovenel Moise was assassinated by a Colombian hit squad that planned the mission in Miami. It was a very large hit squad of like 19 people. Very strange situation. Anyway, 2 days before that happened, he had announced this guy, Ariel Henry, as his 7th prime minister in his 5 years as president. And then he was killed before Henry took office. And when that happened, the U.S. pushed out the guy, Claude Joseph, who was the prime minister at the time and thus should have taken over the presidency. And then Henry could have been prime minister anyway. And instead, Henry took power with the backing of basically the Biden administration and no one else. And then he's been the prime minister and acting president since then. At the beginning, and by the way, he's pretty heavily implicated in the assassination. He spoke to 2 of the assassins on the phone, like immediately around the time that it happened. I believe one of them called him like after. So he's heavily implicated in it. But of course, there's been no real investigation or trial or anything. And so then he's been the acting president and the prime minister. And at the beginning of 2022, the last elected politicians in the country, 10 remaining senators, had their terms expired. They all left office. So there's been no legislature or anything.
Right. They just let it go, basically.
Yeah, by all accounts.
Wouldn't happen in America, but.
Yeah, no, I mean, I haven't seen any of them say why they made this decision. But you have to admire the legislators for all leaving when their terms ended when their terms ended, instead of just staying there saying, we're going to stay until there's an election.
Well, they were probably worried about getting some violence on their end, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, presumably there was some combination of principle and fear and possibly just being pushed out by a guy that wanted to be an autocrat.
Right.
Anyway, so by all accounts, Henry has basically just been one gang leader, out of about 200, who controls around 10,000 national police forces and 20% of Porto Prince, the capital.
Right.
And, there's almost no social services. A lot of the stuff in the country runs on various foreign aid anyway. So, I mean, some schools were still functioning. There's still, I think,
we should
parochial
say that
schools, etc.
Henry, he's gone. Like, he's gone now. Like,
he finally did resign yesterday, yes.
But he wasn't
so that
in
happens.
the country.
No, so
Kenya,
yeah. I'll get
Puerto
to that
Rico
in a second.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, so the main thing that Henry has been doing is going around the world, asking for a foreign intervention to prop up his illegitimate regime. Mm-hmm. And that was presumably why they put him in power in the first place. And so people have been talking about it, but not doing it. The U.S. didn't want to lead it. They wanted someone else. in part because they kind of need black faces in charge of something like this to satisfy modern sensibilities. Though, of course, Kenyans and Haitians have nothing to do with each other. The countries did not even have formal relations until they were getting ready to do this intervention. Not because of any...
not the same type of Africans. Like, that's like
no,
like Russians or Poles to help a crisis of Irish people. It doesn't make
sense. No, for sure. It's just that they're the same skin color. They don't speak the same languages at all. No one really speaks Haitian Creole but Haitians. But, most of them know at least some amount of formal French, or you can, kind of communicate. So they did get the Senegalese on board who do speak French. They were supposed to be involved in this. Anyway, so they got Kenya to agree to lead this by bribing them with $100 million in U.S. taxpayer money. And, they wanted the money and the equipment. But then their Supreme Court blocked the deployment. So they had to not call it an international mission. They had to call it a reciprocal agreement between Haiti and Kenya, which the president can do without the legislature, clearly for the purpose of like coordinating with Ethiopia on terrorism, not for the purpose of sending 1,000 troops to Haiti. Yeah. And so then when he was out of the country, that's when the gangs fully revolted. And the main leader is this guy, Jimmy Cherizier, who is known as Barbecue, who has been leading this group called the G9. It's a coalition of gangs. And, he says he's a revolutionary, not a gangster, and that, they're not involved in crime besides, general, basically the protection racket that is what any government is anyway. Besides like doing security and shaking people down for money, they're not involved in other crimes. And so, he started a rebellion. He said that they're going to fight Henry until the last drop of blood, that, they're going to make Haiti heaven on earth or hell for all of them, and, some other pretty crazy and scary things. And then, with Henry gone, they attacked the airport. They put police stations under siege. They ultimately set the Interior Ministry on fire. They had a big gun battle, outside of the presidential palace. And so Henry has not been able to return to the country. And he finally just now did, in fact, resign. Though that's only effective once they put in a transitional government, which, if they use someone in the country to do that, they're just marking that person for death, basically. And if they choose someone out of the country, the person's going to have to like lead an invasion force if they want to be anything, basically it's just someone for the outside powers to negotiate with to try to justify a foreign intervention as having the approval of the Haitian government. But there is no Haitian government. It's literally a failed state.
Yeah, there's no legitimacy. And then when there's no legitimacy for a government, it really comes down to the monopoly on violence. And that's what Barbecue, who, by the way, I think you didn't mention this right now, but like, I don't know. He was a national police officer, got expelled in 2018, apparently was still involved in, somebody just said I need to put up my sound. Thank you for that. The police expelled him in 2018 for abuses. Apparently there was like a giant, like 71 people died. There were like 7 rapes. They burned a bunch of people.
For which he has an alibi.
For which he has an alibi. See, that's why I bring you on, man.
Yeah.
Seriously.
He wasn't even like really there at all. So the journalist Dan Cohen, who admittedly, like Barbecue makes a really good impression on people, and he's accessible to journalists. So Dan Cohen does really like the guy, and find him a true like revolutionary or what have you. But he showed pretty extensively on his Substack Uncaptured Media that that Barbecue had nothing to do with these massacres. One of them, he wasn't there for in any way. And so, that's what they said. And they, got rid of him for one way or another. They threw him out of the national police. And since then, he's been, basically private security, a gang leader, revolutionary sort of person. He comes off pretty well, though. It's really interesting. You can easily find videos of him showing journalists, basically the same thing, around his neighborhood that he controls. And, he's basically just acting like the government in the absence of one.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, I mean, it's so hard to sift through the propaganda. Like these reports of cannibalism, like it doesn't seem like there's a lack of food to the point where that would be like a need, especially this early. But like, while that's probably happening, I mean, I think it's a lot of fear mongering. And like, allegedly the name barbecue just comes from when he was a kid. It's not related to the cannibalism thing. I know people make that connection just phonetically.
Yeah, so in his case, he says it's because his mom sold barbecue chicken on the street when he was a kid. Other people say it's because he burns his enemies. No one actually claims he is a cannibal. So the idea that there's these organized cannibal gangs, there's not the organized part, but Haiti is an island of or a nation of 11 million people, and it's really destable, and there's a lot of very traumatized, dangerous people there, total disorder. So I don't doubt that in everything going on, there might be some real videos of cannibalism, and also we do have to be accurate here. In that voodoo comes from Haiti. It is still widely practiced. They're pretty private about it. I'm not any sort of expert on, their practices, but it's not unreasonable that there are weird religious rituals going on because voodoo is legitimately a widely practiced religion in Haiti.
And one thing I should say about cannibalism is that cannibalism is far more common in human history than you think, and it's far more common in the world today than you think. Like, this is happening. There's cannibalism, ritualistic cannibalism, which is really the only type of cannibalism, besides like when people are truly starving, is still being practiced in the UK. It's not very common, but I know of specific cases in the UK. It's basically happening everywhere. And voodoo is not the only religious practice that does this. There's Santeria. There's a bunch of them that do this. And
I can't say. Exactly. And and still things like that happen. And in fact, obviously, the Eucharist is a faux cannibalistic ritual. That's the symbolic meaning of it as well. Right. So anyway, so I can't speak to anything about the cannibalism more than that. I have also seen a convincing looking video that appears to be someone taking a bite out of someone's leg after, burning them. But I would say that the level of interest in that is obviously basically a CIA psyop to convince us that, we have to be white saviors to these people.
Yeah, it's always like that, even though it never really works out. Okay, so where we're at today, because this article was written, you wrote this article 5 days ago. It's gotten worse. They had already stormed the airport. Jimmy Barbecue is in charge. Is this guy is this an okay dude then, is what you're saying? Like, is this, I mean, he seems to have the consent of the people, at least, or the monopoly on violence. Is it as much consent as it is coercion? How Machiavellian is this,
Well, you need to understand that there's like about 200 recognized armed gangs in Haiti. So he's nowhere near controlling like all of the country. He controls like the largest coalition of gangs in Porto Prince. And he's gotten basically them to agree to mostly stop fighting over turf, so that they're prepared to, so that they can overthrow the government and so that they can resist a foreign invasion. The other thing is, like, these gangs have been around for a long time. They're pretty well established. It's really interesting. In an interview he did with, maybe it was Sky News a couple of years ago, he, was showing a guy around, and, they're in this broken down neighborhood where there are like holes in some of the walls to shoot through. It's like a, ruined fortress basically. And he's telling me, he's like, I'm completely safe here. If I go past this block, I get shot at, Anyway, so besides like their little turf wars over, a block here or there, the gangs have delimited space. I mean, it's basically like a feudal system in, Europe after the fall of Rome or something like that.
Right. So there are patronage networks who are providing social services that the government isn't providing. Is that basically what's happening?
So, something of that nature. I mean, at this exact moment, no one's providing social services. But for the last, number of years of this, basically everything in Haiti is non-functioning right at this exact time. But yeah, it's something like that. And a lot of these people are in the rural areas, are for the most part just living their same kind of extremely impoverished peasant lifestyle that anyone would have 500 years ago, kind of.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Okay, so where do we go from here? There are clearly factions forming. There's obviously international like vultures that are preying over this. The Clintons, the Clintons are the Clintons. And they're heavily involved in Haiti, and I haven't seen anything from them about right now, but that's definitely been in the past. I think it's been since like 1994 they've been involved there, $2 billion or something. Yeah, I'm with you. Alone in the woods. This is why you live in the woods. I wish I could say the same right now.
Okay, so there is one other person really to watch in the country right now, and that's a guy named Guy Philippe, and he was deported to Haiti on either December 1st, basically, apparently without properly alerting the remains of Haiti's government. So this guy was one of the coup leaders against Aristide in 2004 and ran for president unsuccessfully in 2006. But at that time, he started being investigated by the DEA for drug trafficking and that sort of thing. So he was kind of a fugitive within Haiti for 10 years. And during this time, he successfully ran for Senate and got elected as while he was being actively hunted by the DEA or whatever.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah. So then this guy, he goes to do an interview right before taking office, at a radio station, and the government picks him up and turns him over to the DEA. And this 2016, this is the last election Haiti had, by the way. So he does 7 years in the federal prison in the U.S., and they decide to let him out and deport him home. So he gets home just 3 months ago. And since then, he has managed to seemingly take over this kind of a rogue environmental police division that's supposed to, I don't know, protect nature, but instead they've just become a paramilitary.
Dude,
and he's taken them over, and he
took over the park rangers of Haiti.
Yeah, there's 2,000 to 6,000 of them actually, and they're heavily armed. Yeah, it's crazy. And so he took them over. In February they got in a fire. I guess they got ambushed by the national police actually, and 5 of them died. But he's been taking care of them, and they're more in the countryside, not in Porto Prince. And he's presenting himself as a possible president or the head of a transitional council. And he seems to be, despite that he just did 7 years for money laundering as an ex-con that got released 3 months ago, is somehow seems to be viewed as slightly more palatable than Barbecue, perhaps because he has more of a history in politics. He was elected to Senate the last time they had an election. So he's the other main person. He's been really busy since he got deported there on December 1st.
Okay. And wait, what's that guy's name?
Guy Philippe. Guy, it's spelled Guy, but Guy Philippe.
Guy Philippe. Okay. Are you sure? Okay, so he's in the countryside. He's taking control of that. I mean, that type of legitimacy that he has with that police force, likely that doesn't carry over into the capital, which is the seat of power, right? So
no, but he is a former coup leader, so he, to some extent, he should have partisans throughout the country.
Right. Gosh, dude, it's so crazy when this stuff it breaks down to just the most basic. And okay, it breaks down to in the West, in the United States, we have all these socially constructed organizations that things move through, and it works in a bureaucratic way, and then stuff like this happens, and then you're reminded that it really is all a facade, and it all comes down to who can control what. And maybe our next president will be Eric Prince or Charles Haywood. We'll see.
So I have no idea if this is actually true, but many years ago, my friend told me that when a city is evacuated because of war or a bombing or something, that all the dogs naturally sort themselves out by breed and form gangs of each dog breed. I have no idea if that's true of dogs, but I think about this all the time, and humans function basically like this. In any sort of catastrophe, they just have a way of kind of sorting themselves out and becoming gangs.
Yeah. Okay. Let's. I got a bunch of comments. Let me get to some of those and then continue with. Tweety Bird's asking, how do Haitian elites make bank out of this mess? Good question. Not only Haitian elites, but other elites as well. Probably going to make money.
Well, you know what's funny? You remember that lady, Gay, the Harvard president?
I do.
So so her family runs the only major advanced concrete company in Haiti. She's tied to one of their top oligarchs. So she's related to the people that are the only people in the country that can pour concrete for tall buildings and stuff like that. So they have a way of making money if this ever ends. And of course, she's in the U.S. She now needs a job. She's connected to all of the people in the U.S. that would give the aid money for the rebuilding. She has the Harvard connection. So,
Yeah, it's all patronage networks, man. I mean, we talked about this. I had on Basil. We talked about sexlectics, dialectics, like sexual patronage. This is what it is.
Yeah, well, the richest man in Haiti is inexplicably a Syrian Jew as well. His family's been there for like 125 years. I don't remember what his name is. But yeah,
him.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, he's in all sorts of businesses. Anyway,
sure
the
he's got
elites
a small army
certainly will find a
himself.
way to make money. Oh, I would think so.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd have to. It's like it doesn't. It only guys like Eric Prince are like, he's the founder of that
Blackwater.
paramilitary group. Yeah, Vitel Home Innocent. Yeah, these names are crazy. They remind me of the Liberian Civil War. It must be some sort of prestige thing. Yeah, JC is bringing up Patrick McFarland has done some good podcasts on Haiti, and he interviewed a Marine who was stationed there in conjunction with the UN. I don't know about this guy.
I think I might know who he's talking about. I mean, not Patrick. I know Patrick McFarland. I think I might know what Marine he's talking about.
Patrick
Anyway,
McFarland.
yeah, I saw Pat post an article from about 2.5 years ago about this, but I didn't read it because I already have the background on it or whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, check out Vital Descent, Patrick McFarlane's podcast. I've actually been on it. I don't know if you have, Brad.
I have, yeah.
But yeah, you have, and also you write for the same
Libertarian
publication
Institute,
as him. Yeah, Libertarian Institute of Scott Horton. So shout out to Scott Horton and freaking Patrick McFarlane. So JC asks, will Haiti make the Barbary Wars great again? I did not read that question before I read it out, but it's a good question.
I mean, we'll see. Like, it's really, I mean, the situation there is drastically worse than the last time that they tried to do an intervention. And, in 94, they sent in 25,000 people with 2 carriers when they were, or 91. Anyway, in the early 90s, I think it was 94,
I think.
Yeah, they sent in 25,000 people with 2 carriers. And I cannot imagine the U.S. Being able to get the willpower together to send something like that currently. And at the time, the situation was way less bad. It still had, a great degree of government. It hadn't had these gangs developed for so long. It wasn't that many years after the end of the Duvaliers who kept a degree of stability. And so, like, I would think to have any chance of success now, they would need more than that. And, despite what Joe Biden might think, it is not the early 90s anymore. And I just don't see I don't see the U.S. having any willingness to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's I don't know why they did it in 1994. Maybe it was just like, it was right after the fall of the Soviet Union. So maybe it was just a time of absolute strength, similar to when like Yugoslavia, which has more of a geopolitical purpose. But I don't know. But like, what's going to happen now? Because it's the international community has to, create relations with somebody. Is really nobody going to go in there?
I mean, for one thing, they don't have to. But secondly, I mean, Haiti started under a blockade for a long time because they were angry that the slaves freed themselves. So, I mean, right. The U.S. didn't have relations with Haiti until like 1862 when Abraham Lincoln wanted to make a point about slavery.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. Right. And then since then, there's been lots of interventions, just like there have been in plenty of Western nations.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people remember that, the famous War is a Racket piece by Smedley Butler. Right. The main thing he's talking about is his intervention in Haiti. He talks about other stuff, but that's the main thing he's talking about. They took literally the national treasury of the country and put it in Chemical Bank in New York.
Wait, what?
Citibank. They took, was it City or Chemical? Anyway, they took the national treasury of Haiti and deposited it in New York City Bank for safekeeping.
Really? Is it still there? Don't we have
they ultimately repatriated it. But he talks about how it was for the city boys or whatever in one of those specific quotes. But yeah, the main thing that's about the most is Haiti. And yeah, they held it for some time. And, also France made them pay like reparations for their own freedom, like to their slave owners. And in one way or another, that didn't stop until like 1935 or something.
I mean, I see that argument. Obviously, they freed themselves. I mean, the other side of that is that like they did like the Haitians killed a bunch of French people, including a bunch of children, committed a bunch of rapes. And yeah, they were slave owners, but through the laws of the time, they, the country as a whole, like committed a mass crime. So I don't even really blame them for charging the Haitians. It's not like
well, it went on for like a really long time,
yeah.
and they for one thing, it was supposed to go to the slave owners themselves, not the French government. Though the French government found a lot of ways to profit on it over the years, of course, because that's also how governments function. It's actually funny in the Count of Monte Cristo, when he's messing with that guy's fortune, one of the things that comes up is the slavery debt payment because they like expect it to default and it doesn't. But yeah, the French basically just put a gunboat there and told them, we're like blow up and invade your country if you don't pay all of this. And it completely messed up, beyond the fact that they were like slaves with no skills for freedom and, et cetera. It completely messed up their ability to get started because, the French were like squeezing blood from a stone.
Yeah. It's, but I think that there's something I was talking about recently. Like everybody has a master, and I'm not talking about like individual people being slaves. I'm talking about like countries. Like, their geopolitical situation was rough. Like it was just really, really rough. But yeah, France still does a lot of coups and stuff in Africa. I think more than anyone else.
Yeah.
Is Kenya going to go in, or are they not doing that?
Well, for now they're delaying it until they have a government they can say that they're there to protect and support, basically. But they didn't agree on sending like special forces or anything like that. They only ever agreed to sending police, and it wasn't obvious what the police were going to do. They were maybe going to guard government buildings so that Haitian police could do missions against the gangs or that sort of thing. But
Kenya is a pretty established country, right? They're one of the most stable and prosperous nations.
Well, that their police massacre people is well established, so I don't know why they're sending them to Haiti. Anyway, but yeah, they're relatively stable. Basically, the case of Kenya is that when they took their freedom, their leader Jomo Kenyatta decided that it was not productive to maintain animosity about the past instead of moving forward, which has overall been the best path for countries in Africa in one way or another. But you kind of have to get them to agree to that. And anyway, it continued to be the base for British neocolonial operations in sub-Saharan Africa, like there's besides South Africa, but so in the whole rest of the region. And so it is definitely one of the better established countries in Africa. It's also better known just because it has better relations with England and the U.S. And it's, Nairobi is like the safari capital of the world and stuff like that. Yeah. So Kenya is a lot less significant within Africa than we imagine, because it's like the African country that you kind of hear the most about, besides just in terms of like a famine or a civil war or something. But it's not really that. It's not that significant of an African country as far as things go within Africa itself.
Yeah, not as much as like Ghana or Nigeria.
Well, Ghana's a really small country too. Definitely not as much as Nigeria. But yeah, Kenya is just not actually that large. It's not that high of a population. I don't think it's in the top 5 of either of those in the African continent. But yeah, it is overall pretty well established. It has avoided most of the worst problems that countries in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, faced since independence. But they really did only agree to embark on this fool's errand because the Biden administration put an enormous amount of money on the table, which they've only increased since it's happened. I think the Biden administration's commitment from the U.S. is up to $330 million, including both pledged both like humanitarian aid and for military type stuff. But that hasn't, that's just what the Biden administration is saying there. Because of our constant arguments about the budget and that sort of thing, they can only get small pieces of it currently, because they haven't got Congress to agree. So we'll see. But you have to full on invade Haiti at this point. They were planning on like landing at the airport and going and getting set up in a barracks near the presidential palace, and that's no longer possible. So you have to find someone that is willing to basically lead an amphibious assault on the country.
Yeah, so they like need to get like the Marines or the French Foreign Legion or something. Like it.
Yeah, and the French,
the Kenyan police is not going to do it.
Yeah, well, exactly. And the Kenyan military is unlikely to do it either, but they're really only using their police. So, it's not clear who's willing, capable, or willing to do this. They're trying to find some way to, get the kind of the various leaders of Haitian civil society, Haitian society generally, which, a lot of people do actually argue, like, you need to bring the gang leaders to the table because there's absolutely no way to do this if you're at war with them instead of at least marginally working with them for the time being, But even Haitian civil society leaders that in most countries would be like hacks, working at Harvard or Columbia or wherever in DC that are, usually always trying to tell you like, oh, my country needs you to send all these people, all this money, all this stuff like that. Even they don't want an international intervention because it has treated the country so badly. So even the civil society groups of well-respected people with master's degrees in the United States, one of them is called the Montana Group for some reason or another. It's just one specific organization of such people. Even they don't want any U.S. involvement like this. No one at any spectrum of Haitian society wants an international intervention. And you can read that in the mainstream media. That's not like getting under the story. I mean, like the Associated Press reported about how badly Biden did by, placing Henry and then holding on to him, and about how no one in Haiti found him legitimate and no one wants these people.
Yeah, it's like it's a tale as old as time. I mean, is
that the fast innocent man? I'm trying to think what Vitel is. I'm learning French currently. Anyway, that's man innocent is that guy's name in some sense. Vitel man innocent.
Yeah, this is the guy that somebody in the comments brought this up. Crazy Barbu, and I guess this is from a few years ago. Yeah, so this is literally from the Department of Justice. Haitian gang leader charged with hostage taking that resulted.
Oh yeah, they do a lot of hostage taking. It's a major drug transshipment point because it's not that far from the U.S., but it has really a really corrupt and poorly functioning state for a long time. It's a wonderful place to get your cocaine from Colombia to get it closer to the U.S. and then move it up. And also Haiti is just absolutely awash in U.S. guns. So, they have the two-way traffic there because the gangs always need guns. There's been in various forms an arms embargo against Haiti since 92, and the country has some of the highest small arms per capita of any country on earth, I think, because they just massive amounts of arms trafficking from the U.S. In return for drug trafficking. It's I mean, it's really bad from every direction. I mean, as this is what I've tried to explain. So, I mean, there are not a lot of people that, write about foreign policy and stuff like that have my kind of background in political theory and an understanding of the development of states and stuff like that. And you really have to look at this as starting from the very beginning, basically state of nature, essentially, of, a strongest gang leader starting to build something.
So so Barbecue seems like the strongest gang leader. There's this other guy. So the other guy that you said, Guy Philippe, he's up in the mountains with the park rangers. He's deputized the park rangers.
No, they were already there. They've been around for 5 years. He somehow took them over as soon as he got there.
Very basic patronage stuff. It's pretty incredible for someone to go in and be like, I rule, I'm leading this army now.
I guess it makes a little bit more sense in that. I guess basically a lot of them were soldiers that took part in the coup with him in the first place. I think the government created this division to give those guys jobs. So he was kind of their, to give them jobs and keep them out of trouble, which didn't work. So he was kind of, I guess, their leader while he was in prison as well. Regardless, he's been very busy for a dude that got back to Haiti literally 3.5 months ago after a 7-year absence.
God, man, it must have been like the returning of William Wallace for these guys. That's
crazy. I guess so.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. So that guy, but if that guy has Western support, it almost feels like that works against him.
He doesn't have Western support. There's just a subtle feeling that people find him less objectionable. And then this guy, his name was Giles something. He's a photojournalist. He did a really good interview on CNN of all places. Because actually a lot of the media is better on this than you would think, just because no one thinks an intervention in Haiti is going to work, essentially. Anyway, he said he suspects that Philippe and Barbecue are in some sort of alliance, but there's not really evidence of that besides that Barbecue's trying to get the gangs to stop fighting. So it's entirely possible that they'll somehow take power, and then we'll end up with a Sudan type of situation where, they turn on each other after taking power together. The classic, how Cato said that the problem in Rome was not that Caesar and Pompey became enemies, but that they were friends in the first place. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's things take a lot of time, and people are impatient in the modern era, and the Biden administration, I think, really wants to look like they're doing something before the election, especially with the concern about a migrant crisis, getting worse. There are a lot of genuinely dangerous people in Haiti. I'm not, I guess I'm kind of like a moderate on immigration generally, but it's undeniably the case that there are a lot of very dangerous people in Haiti from, years of violence. Anyone that's 20 has barely seen anything resembling normalcy in the country, and the country was really bad before then too.
Yeah,
they've been raised by gangs in the streets, essentially. So I mean, it's a real concern having migrants pour out of this country, that a lot of them are going to be dangerous and not be able to live in a society and stuff like that. At the same time, there are many Haitian Americans that have done well and adapted. It was actually funny. This guy and Dan Cohen was hosting a Twitter space the other day, and there was this Haitian American guy that was talking, and he's like, I've lived in Haiti before. When I was a kid, my parents sent me there as punishment because I wasn't behaving, which is actually common among Haitian Americans.
Oh my God.
Well, they're like, you won't behave in America, you're gonna go live with your grandma in Haiti for the summer. It makes sense.
Oh my. Yeah, no, it does make sense, but it's well, obviously they wouldn't do that right now.
They wouldn't do that now. This was 15, 20 years ago when it was less bad. And it's like anywhere else, even say like Honduras or El Salvador at its worst time. If you're out in the country at your grandma's banana farm or coffee plantation or whatever, it usually is actually pretty safe. It's primarily in the city that things are really dangerous. But it's the same premise as getting sent to your grandma's cattle ranch for the summer because you're getting in trouble in the city. Just they're getting sent back to Haiti.
Yeah, and what people listening might know or not know is, and we talk about this sometimes, the tension between African and Afro-Caribbean immigrants to the United States and the native Black American population. There is a incredible amount of tension between them. And
wait, is there a three-way tension in that?
No.
Okay, yeah, okay.
No.
I know what you're talking about then. Yeah.
Together, Caribbean
and Africans,
Caribbean blacks and Black Africans.
Oh, for sure. I mean, even not knowing anything
Black
about
Americans.
this, my brother went to Penn. And so I went to Philadelphia for his wedding when I was 21 or 20. No, I wasn't even. I was 19. And you can see just from looking at them who's an African and who's an African American. And there's tons of African immigrants in Philadelphia. They're totally culturally different.
Mm-hmm. And they hate each other. A lot of them hate.
Yeah.
Each
Oh
other.
yeah.
Especially those parents that are straight from Haiti. They're going to be raising their kid, the racist things that come out of Haitian mothers' mouths against native Black African Americans has got to be the worst stuff that anyone's ever heard.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, basically everyone hates everyone else. It's just only in the U.S. have we been taught that, and in Western Europe have we been taught that it's evil to do this. So then people visit some other country and they're like, oh, well, all of our stereotypes are wrong, but all the gypsies in Italy are actually criminals or whatever, and they don't even think twice about it. It's really common, but yeah, I mean, basically everyone. Time. Oh yeah, no, me too. Yeah. When I was in college, actually, someone wrote. This was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Someone wrote for my school newspaper a thing about life in Italy, talking about the problem of gypsy criminals in Italy who's studying abroad there. And clearly, no one knew, neither him nor anyone at the newspaper understood that was an ethnic group and not a general term for vagrants that they used in Italy. And they published a whole 800-word piece about his experience in Italy. And meanwhile, talking about how all the things that they say about migrants in the U.S. He literally said this, about immigrants in the U.S. are untrue, but this is really the case with these gypsies in Italy. They do this and this. I wrote them a long letter to the editor that was like too long for the purpose. I was like, you have any idea what you people just did? I wish I would have cut it out. And like saved it, but I didn't. It was crazy.
Dude, that's amazing. That reminds me. That's so insane. It reminds me, semi-related, was I was in a college class once, and they were talking about, like, there was this terrible professor. He came to, like, one of my favorite anthropology classes to talk about this book that this Christian guy wrote with a Jewish woman and a Palestinian Muslim. Yeah. And, like, there was a Muslim woman who was, like, a master's student who came in. This was an undergrad class, but she came in to sit in it. And, like, the freaking professor, the Christian one, starts talking to the Muslim student about how nice the Ottoman Empire treated their slaves, and how Christian parents in the Balkans would want their children to be taken as slaves by the Ottomans because of the prestige of it. And I was like, I'm sitting there in absolute shock. I'm looking around, no one else is responding, and I'm like, dude, you were saying that parents wanted their children to be taken as slaves?
That's an incredible misunderstanding of what janissaries were.
It's an incredible misunderstanding of what janissaries were. Like,
I mean, and they did. It was in a way prestigious. They sent them back there to be the ones that, like, controlled the Balkans, and later they kind of led some of the revolts and helped with like Balkan independence and stuff like that at a later time. But yeah, that's a very insane misunderstanding of how that system worked.
I've got that. This happened in like 2008. 2020. Yeah. I've got the professor's name and stuff written out. I'm going to eventually fuck with him. That's crazy. Fuck with him, like, making content, but like this guy's like gonna have forgotten about this entire thing, and then he's gonna have a fire lit under his ass because, like, I mean, I'm gonna give people his, the phone number to his office and stuff. He's a freaking professor at a public university. The man needs.
I had some really bad ones as well. Anyway, so back to Haiti though. So I mean, anyway,
Cleveland, like the video, please. Back to Haiti. Sorry, Brad. Go ahead. But yeah, please.
Anyway, so what I have been trying to explain to people, as I was saying, is that like state building of any sort is, I mean, basically everyone in political theory agrees that most states start by some sort of strongest bandit or whatever you want to call them, and people make some sort of agreement to have a commonwealth, which is one way or another, they basically decide that being under someone's protection is better than the alternative, whether that's because that person is, threatening to kill them if they don't pay protection money, or whether it's, anything else. And the government modern governments kind of want us to have a misunderstanding about what government is and, how it works and where it comes from. So they don't really want anyone to see this process that took place over such a long time in other places, but things still work functionally the same. And, Haiti is going to be impervious to having government imposed on it from the outside. I mean, at least I think they could try to do a whole Afghanistan project there, but, that didn't work in Afghanistan. And I guarantee no one is devoting the troops and money, that they did there.
No, it's
and
insane.
So you kind of just have to let it happen. So really the best way I see this working out is, the gangs reaching some sort of agreement, probably where barbecue is the chief among them in some sort of kind of neo-feudal system, between where their power is recognized. And then over time, they try to coordinate on various things. They do have going for them that on top of, there are a lot of people that practice voodoo, but that Catholicism is still the predominant religion there. So they do have the Catholic Church as a at least reasonably well-respected institution. That's really the only, I think, institution in Haiti that people like at all. Because, when the UN was there last time, they gave them cholera and mass raped their daughters. So the UN intervention, the troops from Nepal were shitting in their water supply, and there's a cholera outbreak in Haiti that's killed like 20,000 people. Well, they're just incorrect hygiene practices. Not
that's
like
a little
intentionally.
More than incorrect.
Not like intentionally. Well, it's like not an improved water supply. It's not like it was they were going to their well. It's like the river they were drinking out of or whatever. Anyway, one way or another, the UN admitted this. They got cholera from the UN peacekeepers, It's killed 20,000 people, at least that are recorded. That probably doesn't include, I don't know, deaths in the jungle when you don't actually make it to a doctor or whatever.
Oh, no.
And then on top of that, they have evidence that at least 2,000 women and girls report having been sexually abused by UN peacekeepers in the last mission. So, I mean,
as young as 11.
Yeah, these are not fringe things I'm talking about. These are like well-established facts that, you can read in Reuters as he pulled up or anywhere else. The UN has admitted to both problems to one extent or another. And so really no international institution has any credibility there. Of course, the Clinton Foundation is really hated. The UN is hated. The American government is hated. Canada, they really dislike. The French, Brazil, they're so really angry at Brazil for being involved in all of this. I think Brazil was actually the technical leader of the 2014 intervention or whatever, where this last round of stuff happened.
Wow. They can't even take care of their own country. That's crazy.
So really it was under Lula da Silva's first term before he went to prison and got put back in, or made it back in power or whatever. So really there's no outside power that they have any sort of honestly good relations with or respect towards, because they've been abused by everyone that has allegedly tried to help them. It's like a Lifetime movie or something. I'm just saying, so it makes me think of, you'll see like one of these really ridiculously sad stories where some young woman or something is kind of has been abused as a child. So like everyone that is a predator can see that and then continues to prey on the person because they think they're an easy target, essentially.
Yeah. And they usually are for cases. That's why these sexual traffickers and everything, they go after these places that are in turmoil like this. The same thing happened in Ukraine to a lesser extent, but there are millions of Ukrainian women being trafficked. A lot of it is some of it's coercion and everything, but in times of material loss where people are not even getting hungry, they can't even find food. There's a gross power imbalance with the people that have those resources.
I wasn't talking about just the sex trafficking though. I meant the nation as a whole and foreign intervention policies and everything that. I was using that more metaphorically. But anyway, so really the point that I was making though is the only larger institution that still has any amount of trust with the Haitian people is the Catholic Church. And possibly Medicine Sans Frontiers and a few other things like that. There are some smaller,
That's
maybe
Doctors
charities.
Without Borders. That's the real name of Doctors Without Borders. It's just Doctors Without Borders is translated. But sorry, continue.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so there's a handful of these things that might be on somewhat decent terms with them, but overall they've just been abused by everyone that's claimed that they're going to try to help them, which is, why a lot of them have begrudgingly accepted, the role of barbecue in all of this. It's been a long time since they've had anyone trying to lead them. Dan Cohen said something really funny about how, he kind of sounds like a socialist when he talks, but it's not like he's actually read Marx or anything like that. He's just had the experience of growing up on the street in a society that's really unfair. So it's easy for him to say, we're tired of living in this society where you grow up in your mansions, you go to your private schools, we live on the street, our kids don't go to schools at all. And so, and then say hey, we need to all band together. We're being victimized by wealthy people. That's just his life experience. He's 45. That's what he's been seeing his whole life.
So he's a pretty smart guy then, right? He's an intelligent dude. That's part of it.
I think he seems smart. I don't actually know what his level of, oh no, actually I do know he did go to college actually. And then got into
intelligence, not necessarily.
No, I know. I was just trying to think about if he was educated at all. Anyway, so he seems smart when he talks. But he's not ideological in the sense of having taken the ideology of any sort of well-known political philosopher or anything like that. He's more just has lived in a very violent and uneven society where the rich stay rich and probably leave the country anyway, and then the poor stay very poor. And Aristide, the kind of the last legitimate person that the U.S. drove out, was from a Catholic priest background, but from this why am I blanking on it? The social justice doctrine. What do they call it? Liberation theology. he was from that background. So he had more been taught this by, someone. But I don't really think they have any choice but to, band together and try to make something of it. What they do have going for them is that they're used to living in extreme poverty, which makes it easier to tolerate a lot if you think things are going through. They're used to being in poverty and hopeless. So if they just have any idea that things are improving, I think they'll be able to live through a lot while they do the hard work of maybe finally coming out of this. But it all comes down to them being left alone, because they're going to have to do this their own way that isn't going to be what the outside powers like, that is probably not going to leave them anyone's puppet, that's going to not meet our standards of, a well-functioning liberal democracy and everything else. I mean, holding a fair, proper election is out of the question in the next,
they're trying to impose this foreign neoliberal, neoconservative construction of the world on a people that it's entirely foreign to. Like it feels to me like 2021 alleged Western-backed coup, right? Like that is what destabilized this in the immediate term, and then now it's like they need to get to stability again, which means violence, and then they're going to become stable, and then inevitably there's more screwing it up. I mean, if you don't.
I mean, in a sense, at the same time, Moise had already canceled the last 2 elections that were supposed to happen and had stayed in office past his term. And so it had always been really unstable, but, they do have a history of pulling together fast, but, Haiti's in about the worst state that it's been in. I mean, someone in the U.S., it was an American that's lived there for a very long time, said she had lived in Haiti for 40 years, and this is the worst that it's ever been. And a lot has happened in Haiti in the last 40 years. So, I mean, it's a
lot of really bad stuff.
Yeah, it's really about it. I mean, really, the term failed state is used incorrectly a lot of the time, in various ways. It's almost always incorrect. And really, probably the only proper modern examples of a failed state are Somalia, Libya, and now Haiti. It is absolutely a failed state. What sense is Sudan?
Sorry. Not Sudan.
Afghanistan?
Just the southern part of Sudan.
Oh, well, maybe. So, but
that's not the country broadly.
Yeah, and then the other thing there is that was a new state that was struggling to build, and then then their war ended or whatever. So that's kind of a unique situation as well. But yeah, South Sudan things were really bad, but even Afghanistan, you still had in one way or another someone there that was functioning as the government, But
you had an indigenous leadership structure that never occurred in Haiti. It just didn't, from the time they started.
Yeah, well, you had that in Afghanistan as well, because they were people that had been there forever, and they weren't, slaves that had been freed suddenly, got their own freedom. I shouldn't say freed; they freed themselves,
We should say on that one thing we haven't touched on the Haitian history is that when Haiti got their independence, when they had the slave revolt, there were factions within Haiti. There were the coloreds and the blacks. The coloreds being mixed with white ancestry, and there was a mix of that. And actually the ones that are mixed with whites, I think like Kamala Harris's dad, it's Jamaica, not Haiti, but similar thing rules out, is descended partly from a white guy.
Well, Ariel Henry is not actually that dark. He's about the color of a normal African American.
It's similar to Liberia, right? It's the people with the whiter DNA. People don't like to talk about this, but it's also true in Latin American countries that as a result of not the encomienda system, but their racial caste system with the peninsulares on top. But
yeah, well, I don't care that much about DNA as such, but
it's just a comment on the different ethnic groups
on the way they look and whatnot. Yeah, it's a big thing if you come from a background where you know more about the tools and skills of civilization, you know how to read and write. You have maybe some capital. You have any number of things. I wrote about Liberia a while ago for how long it lasted. The colony that the Americo-Liberians built is actually really impressive in a variety of ways, and their oligarchy held for 100 years until it didn't. It's really I wrote about that. I don't know if you saw it, but that's Liberia is really an interesting one, and it is, you're right, it was one of these things no one wants to talk about, because no matter what your pet worldview is, Liberia does not satisfy it, but it's very interesting in a variety of ways. And Haiti is similar, because you can't blame the outside world for all of their all of Haiti's problems. They've had their own share in it. There are cultural reasons that they were not set up to be successful, as well as the many ways that they've been victimized. It's true haven't had a lot of chances to try to learn, I don't know, good skills of like independent people in a well-functioning society. And, you know, so there are like a lot of things going on, but it's certainly not the case that they did, you know, everything right every time, but just constantly kept getting victimized. There are other internal reasons why they've struggled to be successful. You know, I mean, that is what it is. It's, you know, anything in the world has multiple causes. But what has been obvious is that U.S. intervention has repeatedly been harmful and has victimized them, has stopped them from internally developing. And, you know, the U.S. has been obviously, of course, more concerned about their global power struggle than about the well-being of the Haitians. That's no surprise to anyone. Right. So, I mean, it's all a lot of things. But, yeah, they're in a really dire situation. I mean, Porto Prince is surely the most dangerous city in the world right now. Even people that do like, you know, like adventure, danger, tourism type stuff will go to Porto Prince usually and be like, oh, this is the craziest place I've ever been. You know, Dan Cohen was there with a guy that runs like Haiti Liberté newspaper or whatever, who like knew people to get him, I don't know, protection. But I guess even for people that go to like Mogadishu and Kabul for fun or whatever, Porto Prince is an insanely dangerous city that they're like scared of.
Yeah, I mean, that one guy Miles, who was just Lord Miles, who goes everywhere. He was just under house arrest with the Taliban for like 7 months.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm saying it for the listeners.
Oh, sorry,
No, it's okay. That happens literally all the time. Yeah, that's the difference between you as a writer and me as a guy who brings on people who have real ideas. But yeah. He I'm sorry, I forgot what I was saying.
Just that he went to Port-au-Prince and said it was terrifying.
Oh no, he wanted to go, and like he was on Twitter talking about going, booked a flight right before it got like captured by militants, and like everyone in the comments, including me, was like, dude, no, like don't go there. It's not like it's almost like a guarantee that in this case, in this situation, it's almost a guarantee that you would not be safe. Like as a random Westerner white guy going in there, it's.
I mean, I certainly wouldn't trust it. I mean, some of the aid workers that have been there for a long time. I mean, one of the Canadians they were talking about, he's like, oh yeah, well, clearly we stuck for really more than a month. You know, my van or truck or whatever is already full of bullet holes from, you know, doing my work here. Like, I'm not scared of it anymore, but you know, yeah, it's really like a lot more dangerous. But yeah, I mean, so there are still aid workers and stuff like that there, but especially like. Yeah, if what you're doing is going around to the sketchiest places and trying to film people, you know, and not with, you know, when like CBS goes there or whatever, they must hire a security crew of like 10 people for their cameraman or something. Right. Yeah, it's really, really a dangerous place. Obviously, yeah, the worst is in Porto Prince. You're probably less likely to just get your car hijacked driving through. But it's very dire for the people there, no matter how used to violence they are. Like this amount, it's really bad. The one thing they have going for them is that their military was disbanded in the 90s because of its constant human rights violations. They kind of gave up on it. And it did kind of get reconstituted like 5 or 6 years ago, but not with any heavy weapons or anything. So the one thing they have going for them compared to something like Mogadishu or the Balkans in the 90s is there were no heavy weapons to be looted in the country. So like pretty much no one there has anything heavier than like a SWAT vehicle or, you know, like a M16 or a sniper rifle or whatever. There's like not really anyone there with like rocket launchers or mortars or anything like that. So that's the good. One good thing they have going for them.
Yeah. All right. Closing thoughts. I want to go over just a thing on your Substack. Yeah. Tweety Bird says Brad's writing style is zesty. Yeah. Brad's a great writer. Check out the Wayward Rabbler. Anything last you want to say about Haiti?
I mean, I would just say that, you know, remember that most people on Twitter have no idea what they're talking about, and they're just looking to share the latest salacious story. And remember that what the U.S. government does is scare and guilt you into, you know, supporting these interventions, using our tax dollars to mess up other countries, to cause more violence, to make the problems worse. In this instance, they're going to scare you about the migrants, which I'm sure plenty of them are dangerous. But what you need to remember is that there's no reason to believe that an intervention is going to reduce the number of migrants that come out of Haiti instead of increase them. So there's a risk of that making that, even with only that narrow goal, there's a risk of making it worse. So, I mean, basically, as ever, don't believe the government. They're trying to lie to you and to get your money and to hurt people because it's what they do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, obviously. Thanks, Brad. Again, obviously, it's awesome. Yeah, Palestine's a shining example of this. Yeah, in Palestine, we're sending aid as well as paying for the weapons that are making the aid happen. And they're
it's like the opposite of biting the hand that feeds. It's like feeding someone so you have a chance to beat them with a stick.
Yeah, and and then like someone's getting paid for both feeding them and beating them with a stick.
Chaos is good business.
Seriously. So yeah, this is Brad, Wayward Rabbler. Please like the video and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And check out Wayward Rabbler. Check him out on Twitter. Substack's Wayward Rabbler. On Twitter, you're Wayward Rabbler. A lot of stuff on this type of thing. This is your Substack. This is Brad's Substack. This is that article. Lots of other great articles from a bunch of things that a lot of people do not talk about. Thank you, Tweety Bird. Join us another time. Thanks, Alone in the Dark. Thank you, Brad. And
thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming, man. Check out my interviews as well. Just did one with a Italian Buddhist. All right, later, everybody.